afternoon, dreamers, seekers, and believers. How is everyone today? Very well, I hope.
I am very well indeed, thank you, Almudena.
That's great, Lynette. So, we have been thinking about how we would want to approach the beginning of this podcast, and one of the questions that we thought might be interesting to put to you and to ourselves is how did you discover, if you did, that you are more than your physical body? So, is that a question that you have asked yourself before, Lynette?
It's not a question I've asked because it's something I think I've always just known. So it's not something I've put conscious thought to. Maybe I have, but not in the question as you are posing it right here and now. Not personally. I think I've been asked that before by other people. What about you?
Um, well, I grew up with this understanding of the supernatural because I grew up in Catholic Spain. So it was almost like this whole afterlife and this whole life beyond the body was already packaged, ready made for me, and I was born into that. So it took my own journey, and it took many years to first become an atheist or an agnostic, someone that not only does not know, but also believes that it's unknowable whether, there is something that happens to us after life, or so yeah, so that was a very long journey because very early on as a teenager I rejected the ideas that were ready made for me in my culture. So how about you? Did you grow up with any spiritual understandings that were part of your environment?
Not really, actually. I knew my grandfather I was, born here in Australia, but my parents are both German. So my grandfather back in Germany, he was very anti-religion. They used to come to the door looking for church taxes, and he refused to pay any taxes to the church. And my grandmother, on the other hand, had the fear of, we have to pay our taxes, otherwise we won't be able to be buried, and I don't know what else she believed, but I didn't grow up with my grandparents, and my mother and father were not of any strong particular belief. So I didn't grow up with that in my family, but I did grow up having this inner experience that from my very youngest and first memory, I have that experience of connecting with a light that was more than who I am. But I was so young that I didn't even really have any thoughts about it. It was just an experience, and I knew it was real. And it happened because of my mother putting me to bed and then walking out the room, and for a moment I felt separation, and as a very young child I simply surrendered. And then in a pitch black room in the middle of the night, I can remember sleeping in my cot and just feeling this presence, this light, and it was always there when I went to bed right through my teenage years. I always looked forward to going to bed, and I knew that experience was there. So I never actually really thought about it. But I did have I was drawn to, I don't know, watching nuns on TV, movie show, things like that. I was kind of drawn to that, and I went to Sunday school with my stepfather's sister-in-law's daughter, so she was like a step cousin. So we went to Sunday school together, so I had a little bit of exposure to that, and I was always drawn to something of I don't know, worship, surrender. I just always had this feeling, but I didn't understand it. And then in the teenage years I started to get quite confused about what that actually was.
That is very interesting, Lynette, because I think that you arrived very early on at this understanding that is beyond thought and is beyond words and is beyond understanding. Is just an experience. And a lot of people spend, I think, a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of personal investment in seeking that experience. So, yeah, the fact that you arrived at it so early, I think, says a lot, about your destiny and about the kind of soul that you are. Yeah, now that you mentioned that dichotomy between your grandparents, my father was also very, very much about this idea that once you die, they bury you, and that's it. That's your contribution. That you are part of now, the food for the trees, or in a way, there is something beautiful about this idea that we become part of the cycle of nature. But he was also very anti-clerical, anti-religion. So I experienced that from him, and from my mother, I experienced a kind of faith that. Is really a type of blind faith that doesn't really question, doesn't accommodate other understandings. So early on, I rejected both those approaches, and I became quite, a bit of a rebel when it came to all these things. And for me, that experiential stuff started much later in life. It started when I started to meditate and I started to do certain practices like lucid dreaming. And that's where I think I found that there is an inner presence, which you found very early on. And that inner presence is a source of unconditional love, and therefore, it's not possible to ever feel alone, as you experienced as well. So it took me much longer. It was a much longer journey for me to arrive at that, but eventually I did arrive at the same point. So how has that understanding kind of played out throughout your life?
Well, I got really lost because when I was in my very, very late teens, I had already left home. I'd finished school, so it was before I was 20 years old. I wanted to understand more deeply. I kind of was drawn to the Eastern philosophies, and I dabbled in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then I finally came across an Indian-born guru who was living in the West, and I got involved with that community of seekers and meditators, and really started to understand meditation as a practice, which I hadn't before. And it was during that time that I realized, I'm already connecting to that light. I hadn't actually thought about it, but I realized I had that connection. But what happened over the years, life got busy and I kind of lost my way. I lost my connection. And then life got harder and harder, and it got harder and harder to connect. And meditation just seemed like an impossible thing to do. I couldn't get my thoughts out of the way. So I kind of lost my way for a few decades. And then it was really wanting to rediscover myself after a breakup that I started to ask the question to myself of what does it mean to be a spiritual being having a physical experience, because I understood that as a basic concept and idea, but I had lost that experiential touch, that connection there. So it was that question that kind of took me on a journey, which along the way, after really formalizing that question, I had some outer body experiences, and I felt this lightness that was beyond something physical, and I was aware of an awareness, of a conscious awareness that I am more than this body. So that really began quite an intense journey of just wanting to understand what this life is about.
Yeah, that is fascinating, and I have found for myself that it has been very incremental. For a long time, it was just an unfolding, a discovery. Up until the point where I started to practice Kundalini yoga, and after that, I started to get these kind of flashes of realization. So I have experienced both the unfolding and this immediate flashing of understanding, and it's very exciting because it's almost like we are going on this amazing adventure, and it's an adventure of the mind, it's an adventure of consciousness, and we meet fellow seekers along the way, and that is I think our intention for this podcast, that we are creating a community of fellow seekers to support each other in this journey of finding out who we really are, and having these experiences that take us deeper in that direction of discovering ourselves.
Don't forget the dreamers and the achievers.
That's right.
Out there as well. And I think we have to dream about something, and it can be by asking a question, like I did, what does it really mean to be a spiritual being having this physical experience? And I guess in a way there was a dream to find out, and I just went seeking. And along the way, the achievements happened incrementally. So my journey of having lost that connection, or the ease of that connection, not so much that I'd lost that connection, I always knew it was there, and it gave me a lot of faith and hope that in the goodness of life. But the ease of making that connection became harder and harder, and it really highlights to me that you can have this amazing, profound experience and feel like you've arrived, but in the next moment you have to practice having that again and again and again. So, enlightenment is connecting with the light. You could say that's enlightenment, but it's an unfolding journey. It's not a destination, it's a journey.
Absolutely, it is a journey, and when you think you have arrived, I believe there is a danger in that. There is, a hidden danger in thinking that your current understanding of ultimate reality is all there is. I don't believe that in this world we are in a position to understand reality as it is, but we're certainly able to get glimpses of it, and we can certainly take this journey, this unfolding, and see where it leads us. And I certainly, I'm not forgetting the dreamers and the achievers. The idea for me of dreaming has to do with this desire and nature of the human experience, that we always want more, and I'm not talking necessarily about material things, but we always want something else that we don't have yet. And that's where the dreaming, I think, comes into play for me, that we're always dreaming up a new world, new possibilities for ourselves and for others, and that is a fundamental part of the human experience. And the achieving, for me, has to do with bringing all these down to a very practical, everyday level, where we can actually apply it, and we can use these understandings, these glimpses of ultimate reality, and create a better life for ourselves and for our loved ones, and ultimately for the whole planetary community. So, and this takes many forms, and that's, I think, one part that is very beautiful about this, that we all have different approaches to this, and they're all valid. And that's, I think, one of the first things that I rejected was this idea that some religions have, that there is only one way. I think, there are as many ways as there are people, or even more, because some of us have taken different paths at different times in our lives, and we have, then chosen a different path, and that's all valid. And in the end, I believe it leads to the same place. So this idea of practicality, I think that has to be at the core of anyone's true spiritual understanding. How do you actually implement that into your life and make it real? So what do you think, Renee?
Definitely needs to be practical, and I found that's what I needed. I needed some knowledge, I needed some practices, I needed to shift my perception on things. I needed to understand who I am in multiple ways, who I am emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically. I needed to understand a lot in order to be able to become more whole again, because I did, I was quite broken for a long time and very stressed, and the separation was very real and painful, and it was the practical things that helped to bring me back to that, the ease of the clarity, because it was always there, it's just it wasn't easy to make that connection in any moment that I chose. So the practical steps
Absolutely.
has been very, very helpful, and it excites me that the journeys that we have is also unique, and I feel like in an infinite reality there are infinite ways. So it excites me to discover a new way of perceiving this knowledge and this wisdom and these experiences that we all have.
Absolutely, and the interplay between us, among all of us that are on this journey, I think it's a beautiful thing, and it brings us closer to understanding ourselves, and we act as mirrors to each other. To live by yourself without mirrors is a very scary thought. I think that we need those checks and balances, and those that input from other people to see ourselves fully. And ultimately, a lot of religious and spiritual traditions, especially the Eastern ones, have this understanding that we are all one, we're all facets of one diamond, if you will. And I think that's a beautiful idea. And if that consciousness took hold of this planet, how much more peace would we have, once we understand that we are all one, we're all part of the same ultimate being. So yeah, I think there are a lot of very practical aspects to spirituality, and there has to be. I think that that's the only way that people are going to be really connected to it, if they see an improvement and an ability to function better in their own relationships, in their own exchanges with other people. There has to be that dimension of community in all this as well, I believe.
Yes, so exciting journey ahead of us, Almudena, for what we're doing here, because we've decided to undertake this journey and we don't really know where it's going to lead us.
That's right. And because of that, we would like to ask you the question, what are your pressing spiritual questions that you have for yourself, for others? What are your experiences that you have had in a spiritual plane? And where would you like your life to lead in terms of your quest to become more of who you really are?
Yeah, one thing I've learned is to not focus too much where I'm wanting to go, although that's a big aspect of how I live my life. I mean, that's the dreaming aspect, isn't it? However, I also have learnt that I need to be happy, contented here and now, and I need to approach everything about looking forward from the here and now, because it has been so easy to become separated from the here and now, and you can become ungrounded, or you can feel a separation and then not be able to reconnect. So I'm always reminding myself to be present here and now, and that is what has helped me to be able to look forward with hope, excitement, all sorts of good feelings, without feeling that it's not possible, or without feeling the lack of where I am now. Because sometimes there's something in our lives that is not quite right, but rather than feeling that separation and wanting to try and get away from something, I'm always reminding myself now that the most empowering thing I can do for myself is to be fully present here and now, whether I'm thinking about the future, the past, the immediate sort of now.
Absolutely. The point of power in our lives is always the present moment. We need to be present in our own lives without dwelling in regrets about the past, speculation about the future. The spiritual life begins with accepting what is, and from there on in, you can build more, you can grow, and you can, you can establish yourself in a different reality. But it always begins with accepting where you are right now. And also, to build a happy future, you need to learn to be happy now. It's about working on your own happiness skills rather than changing your outside circumstances.
Yes, I had a client once that came to a yoga class I was running, and I used to always do a meditation at the end. And the very first time this person came along, I remember he had such a profound experience in the meditation afterwards that he didn't know that something like that could exist. And it brings me back to what you're saying about practicality. It's about practicing something now that puts us into that experience. Because if we don't know what that experience is and we're not consistently practicing it, we don't know what to aim for to begin with. So he was a reminder to me that we need to know what to aim for.
That's right.
But the practicality is we need to just be doing it here and now.
That's right. That's also important. I'm sorry if you're hearing barking in the background. That's my dog Falcor, and Falcor has a very very special name to me. If any of you have read the book The Never-Ending Story or watched the movie The Never-Ending Story, there is a flying dragon by name Falcor in that story, and that story is actually about all this, about the fact that we all exist in different realities. It begins with a boy that is being bullied at school, and he seeks refuge in this old bookshop, and that bookshop contains this book called The Never-Ending Story. So once he opens that book, he falls into the story, and he finds an alter ego, another version of himself that is the hero of the story. And to me, that is a little bit of an allegory, a metaphor of the spiritual journey, that we all exist in different realities, and we are on a journey of discovering who we really are. But it all begins in the here and now, and we have to find a way to connect all those dimensions and all those realities in which we exist. And yoga is part of that journey for sure. Yoga is, the word yoga means union. It's about this idea of reconnecting with yourself, reintegrating all the parts of yourself. And it certainly hasn't been a straight line for me, to take this journey. And I have regressed and I have reversed and started again. And there is beauty in all that. There is beauty in all these very exploratory efforts that we make to find ourselves. And we learn a lot from everything. And nothing is ever a mistake or a failure unless you fail to learn from it. So that kind of learning experience is at the core of all this as well, and to be very patient with yourself and very patient with others as well.
I think, well, for me, the question, who am I as a spiritual being having a physical experience, and what does that mean, came from a complete breakdown. So I'm grateful for that, that complete falling apart, because a question was born in me, which then evoked a greater thirst. I already had a thirst, but this was like a thirst that was like, I have to find answers. And it's through the breakdowns that we can have breakthroughs, or it's through going back that we can reevaluate and go, no, this is not how I want to go. So those ups and those downs are all a part of the journey, and it's all exciting. It's about how we perceive them.
Absolutely, and I've heard it said that it's actually through those fissures and those broken parts and broken lines that the light gets into our lives. So and that's true. I think that without having these extreme experiences of breakdowns and extreme dark nights of the soul, it would be very difficult to actually become a seeker, because if you are comfortable and if everything is tagging along just fine, then it's very human for complacency to set in. So we have to be grateful. I certainly am very grateful to all my extreme experiences and all my dark nights of the soul for bringing that new dawn of light, and for giving me also the understanding of what other people are going through. I think that we also teach ourselves compassion and empathy by going through these dark episodes in our lives.
One thing I've definitely noticed about myself is the more I practice the connection here and now, the sooner I notice when I'm actually creating that separation for myself, and I don't have to go down the dark path as far, because I can feel it sooner and going, no, I'm not going that way. So I notice it more intensely. It's almost like I feel it more intensely, but I don't have to break down in order to go, no, I don't like this feeling, I don't want to feel it, I want to move towards the light. And I really have noticed that the more consistent I am with making that connection, and the more I've surrounded myself with people who think alike and want to have these sort of conversations, the more it keeps me on that path of light without having to digress from it for too long or too deeply, too severely. And that's a real blessing. So it doesn't have to be such a dark night of the soul anymore for me to go, no, I'm not putting up with this. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely hear you, and you're right. You develop those feelers, for what a situation is like, and now, I certainly know what to avoid and what to welcome. When you check in and check up with yourself, you develop all these, the intuition to know what is good for you and what isn't good for you. And there is certainly growth through suffering. That's the classic path of the cross that Christians believe in. I actually believe now, and I want this to be my life now, that it's also possible to grow through joy, and to grow through ecstasy, and through joy and through happiness. Through happiness, that's a path as well. I certainly want to make that my path.
Follow your bliss.
That's right. Follow your bliss. And I think that's an excellent way, to leave it today and to let everyone think about, these things that we have been talking about. We want to hear from all of you in the comments. Please let us know what your spiritual path has been like so far for you. What has been maybe your most profound learning experience, and what do you want your path to be from now on?
And thank you for listening in to our very first broadcast.
Thank you very much, and we will be back with you soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Follow your bliss.
Absolutely, follow your bliss.